right, recording in progress. Good afternoon, everyone. And good evening to some. For those of you who don't know me, I believe most of you do know me, but just let me introduce myself real quickly. My name is Jonte Robinson, aka J. Michelle, and I just would like to start off by welcoming all of you to the grand opening of my financial services company, Just Here to Help. And so let me give you just a little bit of my background. And this is going to be a little bit challenging for me because I don't like talking about myself. But while I am here on the West Coast, I am 100% an East Coast girl. I was born and raised on the Eastern Shore from Salisbury, Maryland. I was a teen mom who barely graduated from high school, but by grace, amen, we are thankful that I went on to serve my country in the U.S. Army, graduated with a bachelor's degree in public administration from the University of Hawaii, went on to get my master's degree in organizational leadership, and now I am a C-suite executive and entrepreneur. But my greatest accomplishments, of course, is being a mom and a wife. I'm also the co-founder of Greater Bethel Worship Center, as well as Healing Hands CDC. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I am 100% hands down a servant of God. And so as we talk about my new endeavor tonight, I want you all to know that I am 100% committed to helping everyone live prosperously. When I talk about being just here to help, HELP is an acronym for helping everyone live prosperously. That is my charge. There is a wealth gap and we need to fix it. And I am here to help fix it. And so tonight we are here to celebrate and to educate. As I often say, there is no shortage of resources here on this planet Earth. There's a shortage of access and education. And so tonight we are going to be getting education. And when you leave here, you'll be leaving with invaluable information that I believe is designed to enhance your life. I'm also joined by a very special guest who I will formally introduce a little bit later. But we do have a special guest here tonight, Mr. Anthony Stewart, who is from the Eastern Shore as well. And so we can go to the next slide. I am excited to partner with the American Classic Agency. And what drew me to this agency is their mission, which is in alignment with who I am. They have been in business for over 25 years, and they have a track record of helping thousands of families through tax-free income solutions for investing in retirement, mortgage protection, disability and long-term care, life insurance, and debt elimination. Talk about closing the wealth gap. American Classic Agency is doing just that. Over time, but specifically during this pandemic, I've heard several concerns and even expressed concerns myself about the lack of resources for middle and working class folks. Well, that's what American Classic Agency specializes in. They specialize in helping hardworking people. And so today, as we celebrate, as we educate, there's three main things that I'm going to be talking with you about. And that's how your money works, the two battles you must win, and protecting your assets. And so a little bit about the mission of ACA. Our mission is to be change agents for families as it relates to income protection. And most of you who know me know I love interaction. So I'm going to be asking you questions and asking you to interact in the chat box, but income protection. And so who's tired of working, getting paid, and giving your money to the IRS? If that's you, just put in the chat box, me. Tired of working, getting paid, looking at my check, and there's a whole bunch of money that's being taken out in taxes. Also, debt elimination. Do you have debt that you want to get rid of? Credit card debt, student loan debt, card loans. Also, legacy creation. Who wants to leave a legacy for generations to come? One of the foundational reasons why there is a wealth gap is because there's not assets that's being passed down to our loved ones. A lot of times we're seeing in our community people passing away and leaving debt and stress. But we want to shift that so that we are leaving a legacy for generations to come. Let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about how money works. If you've heard of the rule of 72, this dropped 72 down in the chat box. So the rule of 72 is a formula that was created by the Census Bureau that tells us how long it'll take for the population to double. And many of you know that the Census Bureau, they've been counting people since forever and are still doing that. But the banks and financial institutions have picked up this same model to tell us how long it takes for our money to double. And so listen, money is supposed to multiply. If it's not, there's a problem. And so let's take a look at this. The first column represents a 40-year-old person. And so we're going to use the model of a 40-year-old investing $1,000. And so the first column represents putting your money in a bank to save it, which is something that most of us have been taught since we were little. You put your money in a bank and you save it. So if a 40-year-old were to put $1,000 in the bank and got a 1% return from the bank, it would take 72 years for that money to double. Look, I'm 42 years old. I will be 42 years old in August, and I can't wait 72 years for my money to double. Can you wait 72 years for your money to double? I don't think so. And so if we look at the second column represents the stock market. And those of us who may be a little bit more financially savvy invest in the stock market. If you've invested money in the stock market, go ahead and just drop stocks in the comments. And so if you were to take the same 40-year-old investing $1,000 into the stock market with the return of 10%, which is not guaranteed, your money would double in approximately 7.2 years. Thing about the stock market, though, is while you can gain money, you can also lose it. And myself and Mr. Robinson are witnesses to that. To look at our stock portfolio right now, you will see a whole bunch of red. And we don't have immediate access to our money. Now, I'm not saying don't invest in stocks, saying to be educated. And so when we look at the third column represents an equity index strategy. So listen to this. When we start talking about this equity index strategy, I actually get a little bit excited about this because when you start looking at the numbers, if you invest that same $1,000 and were to get a 8% return from an equity index strategy, your money would double not one time, but it would actually double every 9 years. And you don't have to worry about losing your gains when the stock market crashes, because an equity index is tied to the S&P 500 performance. So when it goes up, your accumulation goes up, but when it goes down, your money is protected. So you can't beat that. And you also have access to your money. And so somebody needs to be typing in the chat box right now. I need more information about this because equity index strategies are the way to go. Let's go to the next slide. Let me give you some additional perspective about the 100-man story. And so there is a study that is conducted every year by the Social Security Administration, and they group people into 5 categories based on where people will be at financially when they reach the age of 65 in the United States. So based on this study, 54% of the population will depend on the government, family, or charity. That's over half of the population. That's concerning. 36% of the population will be deceased. 5% of the population will still be working at the age of 65. 4% of the population will be financially stable. When we speak about financially stable, we're not talking about having an overflow or an overabundance of money. We're talking about being able to have enough money to pay your bills. And only 1% of the population will be considered wealthy, financially free. If you didn't change anything right now with how you're managing your money, which category would you end up in? And are you okay with that? Let's go to the next slide. And so if we want to enjoy financial security, there are two main battles that we're going to have to win. And those battles are inflation and taxes. Inflation has been around 3 to 3.5% since 2000. And we see, as we look around, we see what our economy is doing. It's not getting any better. Every time you get a return that's less than inflation, you're losing your purchasing power. For example, you had $1 million and inflation is like it is now, over 20 years would go by and you would only be able to purchase $500,000 worth of goods and services. In other words, we are losing our purchasing power and going broke slowly. The second battle that we need to win is those taxes. And taxes keep on going higher and higher, and they're not going to stop going up. Do you think they're going to stop going up? We think about all of the assistance and everything that the government has been providing over the last couple of years. There's a reality that money has to be recuperated. How do you think the government's going to recuperate some of that money? Do you want to pay those taxes as they continue to go up? So what is your plan to isolate and protect your money from taxes? There's a tax advisor by the name of Ed Slott, and he has a book called Stay Rich for Life. And in his book, he says, taxes will become the single biggest obstacle that presents us from creating wealth. And so at this time, I would like to introduce my guest speaker, Mr. Anthony Stewart, who is from the Eastern Shore, Maryland. And Mr. Stewart has a long list of accomplishments. One of the biggest things I want to point out, as I said, he's from the Eastern Shore, so I call him my homeboy. And I'm thankful that we were able to come together and meet so that we can, as I've been saying, change lives from coast to coast. But Mr. Stewart is the president of ACA, as well as the president and CEO of Stewart Financial Services. He is an author. He serves his community as a member of Omega Psi Phi. He is a graduate of Bowie University, devoted husband and father, and an active servant of Reed Temple AME. And the list goes on and on and on. He is also a member of the $1 Million Roundtable, Court of the Table. And so at this time, I want to turn it over to Mr. Stewart.
Hey there, Miss Jonte Robinson. Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Oh, wow, wow. For those of y'all that joined us, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. And in your own little way, let's just give it up for Jonte. I mean, she just did a phenomenal job. Talking about finances and all that with people that you know and you care about. That's difficult. It really is. So, I mean, Jonte, you did a phenomenal job. I was just ready to let you just keep on going. You know what I'm saying? But really, really, really a great job. And again, I want to thank all her friends and family that didn't find it robbery to get on here tonight and support her during her grand opening This is really a big deal when you're talking about starting a business. It really is, especially a financial service business. So I'm going to pick it up from here, and then I'm going to come back at the end and ask you all for some favors on behalf of Jonte. All right. So let's get into it. The 3 phases of retirement. Right now, we just saw the Super Bowl a few months ago. And if you know anything about football, there are 4 quarters and 2 halves. And in order for that team to win, you got to play both halves pretty good. You just can't play good in the first quarter and expect to win. Well, it's the same way it is with financial planning. So the accumulation phase, that's really just the first quarter, right? And really, if you really talk to many advisors, that's where they stop. They just talk about putting your money here to accumulate your money, and that's all fine and dandy. But that's just the beginning of it. That's really the easy part, really, the accumulation phase. But see, once you get to working and you start getting up there in age, you start getting close to retirement, you got to preserve that money. What good is it to accumulate $1 million and 1 or 2 bad days in the market, you look up your account is at 600,000? You don't believe me? If you were here in 2008, that actually happened. People lost almost 40% of their portfolio. You don't want that to happen to you. So rule number 1 is stop losing money. And that's one of Warren Buffett's rules. Warren Buffett has 3 rules. Rule number 1 is don't lose any money. Rule number 2 is don't lose any money. If you forget, rule number 3 is go back to rules number 1 and 2 is stop losing money. So you got to preserve that money at some point. So there is something called, you just heard Jonte talk about the rule of 72, but there's another rule called the rule of 100. And basically what that means is you subtract your age from 100, and that difference should not be exposed to market risk. So if I'm 70 years old, I should not have more than 30% of my portfolio exposed to market risk. That's the rule of 100. Anthony Stewart's rule is I don't think you should put none of your money at risk. So let me tell you what I've learned over the years. Moderate gains without losses will outperform a volatile marketplace. If you really look at what the market has done over the last 20 years, it's less than 5% interest. So why am I going to stress and worry about losing money when I could put my money in a place where I never lose? Only gain or just get a 0 return. So 0 is your hero in 2008. So that's the rule of 100. But as also, if you know anything about football, you might hear the people say, oh, this team is in the red zone. Well, the retirement red zone is this. It's 5 years before you retire and 5 years after you retire. We cannot make any mistakes during that time period. Case in point, if I was planning to retire in 2009, I lost 40% of my portfolio in 2008, I got to push that retirement date back. So let's say I did retire in 2007 and then 2008 took place. Now I stand a chance of running out of money. So we cannot make any mistakes during that retirement red zone time period. But here's the deal. You've accumulated the money. You preserve the money. Now it's time to spend it, the distribution phase. This is really supposed to be the fun part. You've been working all these years, and now it's time to spend the money. What normally starts out like Little House on the Prairie, it turns out like a Nightmare on Elm Street when we realize Uncle Sam steps in now. And if you don't think taxes are going to be higher in the future, I mean, we really got to really wake up and smell the coffee. Let me just kind of give you a little backdrop, just a little bit about taxes. If you're familiar with David Walker, now there's a lot of David Walkers if you Google him, but I'm talking the former Comptroller General of the United States from 1998 to 2008. That's David Walker. Basically, he was the head of the Government Accountability Office. On January 11, 2011, on a national radio, he basically said that in order for the country to remain solvent, taxes have to double. So right now, we're in the lowest tax environment that we've been in decades. Who do you think is going to pay for this COVID virus relief and all that kind of stuff? The people that understand that are going to earn it, the people that don't are going to pay it. So the distribution phase is really supposed to be the fun part. But here's the thing. We don't know how much of this money is ours because it has not been taxed yet. So think about that. That's just like taking out a 30-year mortgage and you don't know what the interest rate is till the end. Well, that's the same way it is when we put all of our money in our tax qualified plans at work. So the Smart Retirement Money Order, this is the order in which you can receive retirement income in the order that gives us the best benefit. There is nothing better than free money. It ain't. It ain't nothing better than free money. How do I get some free money? Well, an inheritance. Someone leaves you some money. Free money is something that you didn't have to do anything to get. So if someone leaves you money, that's free money. The other place to get free money is a matching contribution to your tax qualified plan at work. That's free money. If they match 3%, you should at least put in 3%. Get the free money. It just makes good sense to do that. But what most Americans are doing, we're skipping over the second best thing, which is tax-free money, right? A Roth IRA is a great choice for tax-free money. However, we got to understand something. The government is not on our side. They're not, because they put income limits as it relates to the Roth IRA. All right. So if you're single between 125,000, probably to about 143,000 now, you cannot put money in a Roth IRA. If you're married, filing jointly, it's between 198 and 210,000. So the government kind of takes away a free benefit for high income earners. And that's not a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if you don't know the other alternative. The other alternative, what the wealthy people take advantage of, is certain types of life insurance cash value. Yep. Some people say, oh, here you go, life insurance. Yep. This is where the wealthy people put their money and put lots of it. The other thing about the Roth IRA is you're limited as to how much you can put in. You know, if you're 50 and under, what, 6,500? If you're over 50, what, 7,500 or 7,000? That may not be enough for a lot of people. But if you properly structure the life insurance, there's an unlimited amount that you could put into it. If you want to put in $100,000, you could. You just have to set it up properly. And that comes from knowing an expert like a John T. Robinson. But here's what most people do, right? Here's what most Americans are doing. We are deferring it, right? We are using our tax qualified plans at work. And there is some good news about that. If it wasn't for tax qualified plans at work, most Americans wouldn't save at all, right? But we got to understand with the silver line is also a dark cloud, right? So the bottom line is this. You got to ask yourself, do I really control my 401k plan or 403b, wherever you work? And most people say, yeah, but I would say, no, you don't, because the government just allows you to put your name on the letterhead. What happens if we touch this money prior to 59 and a half? We know what happens. There's a 10% penalty. The government shows up early now, right? The other thing is this, at 72, we got that required minimum distribution where the government says you have to take your money out of these accounts. And it's only really for one reason, so they can tax us. Why won't they make it 82 or 92? Because they know fewer of us will be here at 82 and 92. They want to catch us before we cross over, right? So we got to understand how this works. Think about it like this too. The government tells us how much money we can put in these accounts. If you're 50 and under, it's what, 19,000 and some change. If you're 50 and over, 24,000 and something. And I always ask this question: why does the government tell us how much we can put in, quote unquote, our own retirement plan? Why did they put a cap on it? If you make $100,000 a year and you want to put $50,000 away for your retirement, shouldn't you be able to do so? Why they got to cap it off? Let me explain to you why. Because the government wants us to depend on them. The government is broke, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let me put this disclaimer right here. I'm not anti-government, but I got to tell you the truth. The government's broke. Look at the usdebtclock.org. You will see the government constantly going in debt right now as we speak, and that's real time. So we don't own our tax qualified plan. It's a tax infested program, meaning that we're going to have to pay the taxes when we pull the money out of these accounts. The other place that's tax deferred money is annuities. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, you know, I don't want to use annuities because I can't get my money and so on and so forth. I don't know of any other vehicle that I could put my money into and have a guaranteed income for the rest of my life. I can't do it with a bank. I can't do it with a CD. I can't do it with the stock market. I can't do it with mutual funds. I can only do it with fixed annuities. Guaranteed lifetime expenses requires guaranteed lifetime income. Annuities can only be offered through a life insurance company, not the bank. You may go to the bank and buy an annuity, but it's through a life insurance companies, right? So that's the place where you get guaranteed lifetime income. Everybody wants that, right? So let me just kind of name a few of the companies, countries that use annuities. The government accounting office says seniors should convert a portion of their savings into annuity to cover necessary expenses. All right. NFL, National Football League, their pension is funded by annuities, right? Ben Bernanke, the former Federal Reserve Chairman, his two largest assets are annuities because of the guarantees and the strength of the insurance company. America's Social Security, that's America's favorite annuity. It's nothing but an annuity, right? A guaranteed payout for the rest of your life. I can't think of anything that's better than that, right? But taxable money is the last thing, right? And at least you have some money to be taxed, right? So the government is not going to put you on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. They're just going to take their money at whatever rate that they seem doable for them. Remember, they're in it to make money. So every time we skip over tax-free and going straight to tax-deferred, we're doing exactly what the government wants us to do. And this is what most Americans are doing today. We're skipping right over tax-free and we're going straight into tax-deferred. And the government is counting on that in terms of income for them, right? So unless you love the government, you know what I mean? We got to redirect this money into a tax-free bucket. But now we got to build our financial house. Think about the house that you live in. The first thing that went down was the foundation, right? That's the first thing. That's the most important part of the house. It's not the siding. It's not the roof. It's the foundation. The foundation must be solid in order for the builder to continue to build the rest of the house. Well, the foundation for sound financial planning is to make sure you got your life insurance together. Why? Because you're only going to be your age for 12 months. Anybody's health could change overnight, especially now. So you need to make sure when you're building your financial house, especially you young folks, get your life insurance together first. If you're single, don't own a home, no children, you still need to get your life insurance together first. And preferably permanent coverage because you want to be able to treat it like a private banking system. And we're going to talk a little bit about that a little later on. So it's the insurance first. And number two is emergency money. It has to be in this order if you're going to build your house correctly. Emergency funds. Well, how much? Well, 6 months to a year, whatever you can set aside for emergencies. You are going to have emergencies. Things are going to happen. And then you can start thinking about retirement. That's not what we're being taught when you go to work. We're being taught to max out your 401k plan first. That's not how you build your financial house, because suppose you have an emergency and you have to go into it and you're not 59 and a half, and now you got to share that money with Uncle Sam. So it's insurance first, emergency fund second, then retirement. But we got to think about the what ifs, the short and long-term illnesses. I mean, what if a person has a heart attack, a stroke, cancer, renal failure, an organ transplant? Where does that money come from? Our health insurance normally doesn't cover those things, right? So we're gonna need access to lump sums of money. And the good news is this: John Tay can get you in a program that can cover all of this with risk-free, and still have the tax benefit and still keep it higher than the rate of inflation. If I were you, I would text her right now and said, I need an appointment with you as soon as possible. This is how you build your financial house in the right order. Let's talk about protecting your assets, all right? That's the life insurance piece. Now, let's talk about that for a minute, because we don't like to talk about that in our community. I've heard people say, oh, I want to talk about insurance. I think I'm going to die. Well, you are. We just don't know when. All right. So let's deal with this for a minute. We got to deal with this. I don't know about y'all. I'm sick and tired of GoFundMe. I did a Facebook Live about a month ago, the eulogy of GoFundMe. I'm sick and tired of GoFundMe. We are better than that in our communities. So here's the deal. There's only two types of life insurance. I don't care what you have. Either you are renting the coverage or you own the coverage. It's as simple as that. Term insurance means you're renting the coverage. I know there's a lot of folks out there that just believe term insurance is the only thing you could have. I know what Dave Ramsey says. I know what Susie Orman says, but that formula has failed middle America, right? I heard this term, buy term and invest the difference. That formula has failed middle America. We buy a term and we spend the difference. We don't invest the difference. So term insurance, that's the insurance through your job. It's term. That means you're renting the coverage. Think of it like this. Why did you buy a home? Right? And you probably bought it for two reasons. Well, I want a tax benefit and I want to build up equity. Well, you can have your insurance do the same thing. So term insurance is low cost initially. If cost increases at renewal, if you have a 20-year term, you don't want to see the cost in year 21. Term builds up no cash. At some point, coverage is going to end. And there's nothing wrong with term because you just got to make sure you get the best kind, the kind that has terminal illness coverage, chronic illness coverage, critical illness coverage, and critical injury coverage. But never buy a term that you cannot convert to a permanent plan. So that select quote and all that stuff you see on TV, they always show preferred rates and they always show 10 years. That's why it's lower than everything else. And they assume that everybody is squeaky clean and healthy, and that's normally not the case. But here's what most wealthy people do, and you don't have to be wealthy to do it. We have access to the same tax advantages that wealthy people do. We just got to know what they are. So what they choose to do is own it. They own the coverage. Most people rather own than rent. It's higher cost initially. Cost remains level. It builds up cash value or equity, just like it does in a home. Coverage is permanent. Now, here is one of the reasons why Jonte got excited about our organization, because of these living benefits. Terminal illness coverage. Whatever you have right now, if you become terminally ill, the doctor says you have 2 years or less to live. What good is your plan doing you right now if you can't use it? Right? And I hear this all the time. Cash is king. Cash is not king unless you have access to it. Right? So if you have a $500,000 plan and you become terminally ill, you can start using that $500,000 while you're still alive. This is the new kind. What about chronic illness? If you know anything about long-term care, you know it's very expensive and less than 2% of Americans have long-term care. Long-term care covers you in case you go in a nursing home or you need a nurse to come to your house or assisted living facility and all that. Well, this chronic illness works in a way that if you became chronically ill and you could not perform 2 out of your 6 activities of daily living, such as bathing, continence, dressing, eating, toileting, or transferring, or you become cognitive impaired like Alzheimer's or dementia, you can access 2% a month out of the death benefit while you're still alive. See, these benefits could prevent a person's home from going into foreclosure. When a person is ill, I understand get well cards and balloons around the hospital bed and all, that's fine. But 8:30, when that bell rings, said visiting hour was over, you start looking around and thinking about, man, I'm accumulating a lot of debt, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But what about critical illness? All of us know somebody that had a heart attack and still living, had a stroke and still living, renal failure, or organ transplant, cystic fibrosis, sudden cardiac arrest, heart valve replacement, motor neuron disease. All these things are covered under critical illness, meaning that if you had a $500,000 program, you could actually call the insurance company up and provide proof and say, I had a critical illness, here's the documentation, and I need $200,000 while I'm still living. This has really been a game changer. And then critical injury covers coma, paralysis, severe burns, and traumatic brain injury. The cash buildup has tax-free growth. It can be used for emergencies. Now, you can use this to send your kids to college, educational funds, and you could even design an income stream that you can never, ever outlive. Remember, guaranteed lifetime expenses requires guaranteed lifetime income. All right. Now, most Americans are familiar with term insurance, and most Americans are familiar with whole life. Right. And we do all of that, but we do a great deal of universal life. right? Let me explain to you how that works and why a lot of our clients like this option. First of all, this is you putting the money in the program. And before it goes in there, the insurance company takes out a small amount so it can pay the death benefit, just like it does with term insurance. And then the rest of it goes into the equity part. This is what people get excited about. That rate of return higher than the rate of inflation, right? This is what builds up the cash. That's dotted box. That's the maximum the Internal Revenue Service says you could put in. And normally when the government steps in, that means it's normally a good thing. It's called Section 7702A. That is the biggest tax advantage in Internal Revenue Service Code. This is why the wealthy people like it. And I'm going to share some other stuff with you in a little bit that's going to knock your socks off, but not just do the wealthy people like it. Banks do it also. But what they like about it is this. Number one, you get a tax-free lifetime income, right? You get tax-free cash value that you can use to invest in investment properties, to buy real estate. But the lifetime income, that's a tax-free pension. Very few people have pensions these days. Can you imagine turning on an income stream that you can never outlive? And then the tax-free death benefit when you pass away. So this is what makes this very attractive. The Wall Street Journal, with information from the Federal Reserve, October 3rd, 2010, said the richest Americans own over 55% of tax-free investment gains built up in life insurance. It went on to say that permanent life insurance has become a tax shelter for the wealthy. We wrote a book about this called Saving Middle America, Securing Financial Dreams. You ought to get a copy, right? But if you're listening right now and you're saying, oh, you get off the phone and you're saying, oh, John Tay is just selling life insurance. If that's what you're taking from this, you missed the point. It's not about insurance. If I could do all these same things, if I had a vehicle that I could use for collateral, if I had a vehicle that is protected from creditors, if I had a vehicle that gave me a better rate of return than inflation, if I could do all that with a CD, that's what we'd be talking about. If the tax laws were built around those things, that's what we'd be talking about. But fortunately, they gave these things to insurance. Right? Where do we find the money for these kind of programs? Well, any contributions above what your employer is matching. If you're putting in 15% of your income, they only matching 5%. You got to ask yourself, when I retire, my money's going into 2 pots. One of them is taxable and the other one is tax-free. I get a chance to decide which amount of money goes into those pots. Do we want to continue to put it in a taxable pot, knowing that taxes are going to be higher in the future? Any money that we are consistently saving in a bank or credit union, we know that banks and credit unions are giving us less than 1%. Why are we putting $2,000 or $3,000 a month into these accounts? Any money that you waste eating out, shopping, now all of us on this phone, we're honest, we waste at least $100 a week. I don't care if you make $20,000 a year, $200,000 a year, or $2 million. Everybody, as they say in DC, everybody's throwing away some money, at least $100 a week. We really are. We can redirect this money and create a private banking system. And this is what we use, ladies and gentlemen, to help people get out of debt. We are showing people how to get out of debt in 9 years or less, including your mortgage, without you spending any additional money. Everything I'm telling you, John Tay and I can help you with. Debt is not just a mathematical problem. Debt is also a physical problem. Debt causes anxiety, weight gain, weight loss. I mean, debt is a major thing. We're next Wednesday, by the way, we're going to be doing a Facebook Live on that. We are targeting the HBCUs to show our students that they don't have to carry this debt until they're 65 years old. And I know what the politicians say. We're going to wipe away student loan debt. I ain't seen one yet to do it. I know what they say, but remember, the government makes money off this stuff. Now, I just saw yesterday that it got deferred again. That don't mean you're not going to pay it. So you just as well get yourself prepared where you could build up wealth using someone else's money and building up uninterrupted compound interest. and pay off debt using other people's money. It's a beautiful thing, and we would be more than happy to show you how to do it. The other thing I want to mention is Middle America has to stop throwing away our wealth. We are throwing away our wealth. We are transferring our wealth in 5 areas, really. Taxes, how we pay our mortgages, how we make major purchases like cars and weddings and all that. We're throwing away our wealth. There's a better way to do it, and we can show you. So who used this private banking concept? Well, Walt Disney does. If it wasn't for this private banking concept, there would not be a Disneyland. Walt Disney got turned down by traditional finance. He used a loan from his private banking concept to finance his theme park. Doris Christopher, she has a company called the Pampered Chef. Well, she had a company. She needed some cash flow. She borrowed $3,000 from her banking concept to start her company. Then she sold it to Warren Buffett for $900 million. We've all shopped at this place. I know y'all don't shop there now. You know, I know y'all big time now, like John tell y'all don't shop there now. But anyway, yeah, I'm just having fun. But James Cash Penney, we know him as J.C. Penney. Right after the 1929 stock market crash, J.C. Penney, that hurt his wealth. However, he went into his private banking concept and made payroll and allowed to keep his company going and went on to become a philanthropist. This the same thing happened to Stanford University. When the father Stanford passed away, they used a private banking concept, were able to pay the instructors and all that to keep, and the Stanford University kept on growing. At some point, I know y'all don't eat there now, but at some point we all ate there. If not, your kids ate there. If it wasn't for this private banking concept, there will be no McDonald's. So this is not a new concept, y'all. This has been around for over 100 years. We, Middle America, got to start using other people's money. We got to start thinking like the wealthy people think. And guess what? Several U.S. presidents have used this strategy. Here's the point. The government, the media does not want Middle America to know. Why? Because if we knew, there would be less money going into the tax qualified plans at work. We got to understand that, right? There would be less money going into the 401ks and all that. And the government counts on that for revenue. Give me about 4 more minutes, right? You know what the pastor says? Give me a few more minutes and I'm going to take my seat. Well, anyway, all right. So to validate everything that we've shared at this point, you might say, this really sounds good. How do I know all this stuff is true? Well, the government put together 3 tax laws. Well, actually, they got about 45 tax laws, but these are the 3 that we focus on. I call them the 3 sisters, Tefra, Defra, and Tamra. And here it is, the Tax Equity Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982. Congress, not John T. Robinson, not Anthony Stewart, not the insurance industry. Congress provided a mechanism to allow universal lifetime policy to be treated for tax purposes. It's called Section 101 treatment. Now, think about this. We've all heard that the wealthy pay less tax than middle class, right? Why? Because they understand tax law. We got to understand tax law. We have access to this same information tonight. So the second sister was born in 1984, called the Deficit Reduction Act was passed. Basically, DEFRA took the Tefra rules and modified them, providing a general set of qualifications for any contract that qualifies life insurance policy for what? For income tax purposes. Think about this. The guys in Congress, they're already millionaires. They're federal government employees. What's $25,000 a year going into a program if you're a millionaire? They wanted another bucket to put money, but they wanted to put it in a place where I ain't got to pay taxes. So it says Congress did this. So they say they did it for them, not Middle America. But I declare I'm going to preach it until I can't talk no more. I want our people to understand this stuff. We got access to the same stuff that they do, but you got to get with the right people that know how to set it up. Because if you don't set it up right, you will violate what we call a 7 pay test. I know I'm getting kind of technical, but I want you to get it. It's the Technical Miscellaneous Revenue Act of 1988, TEFRA, right? So in other words, if you want to put in $25,000 a year, you can do that, but we got to have a certain amount of death benefits so that it does not become a modified endowment contract. Why do we not want it to become a modified endowment contract? Well, you already got one of those at work. You already have a plan. If you touch it before 59 and a half, you're subject to a 10% penalty. We don't want to give you another one. So that's why we got to design it properly so it does not become a modified endowment contract. Remember I said that about the 7702A. It's the biggest tax advantage in Internal Revenue Service Code. But not only are the banks doing it, not only are the wealthy people doing it, remember, they want to keep this a secret from us. Look at this. They got all kinds of names just to throw us off. Who would not want an account that gave you a competitive rate of return, tax-free accumulation if you do it right, creditor protected in most states, no risk at all, strong guarantees, you can leverage it as collateral to finance asset purchases? Well, let's take a look at what the banks are doing. This is called BOLI, B-O-L-I. It's called bank-owned life insurance. Why does the bank buy life insurance? Well, this is how they fund the CEOs and high-level employees' retirement, right? This is Bank of America. They got $9.8 billion in real estate, $3 billion in stock. But look at this. That's because it's an asset. Wealthy people buy assets. You and I have to buy more assets. Things that's going to appreciate versus things that's going to depreciate. 20.9 billion. It's probably more than that now. It's called Tier 1 capital. It's so good for the banks that the government had to step in and say, y'all can't buy no more. That's how good it is for the bank. But not only is Bank of America doing it, you've heard of this bank also, right? You've heard of Wells Fargo. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm only telling you stuff that people have been doing for years. We have got to get on board. I know right now, Jonte can hardly sleep because she is so excited about this. You know, how come we are not hearing this? It's by design. Government don't want us to know. They want us to keep funding programs that they know they're going to make money off of. This is Wells Fargo. 8.3 billion in real estate, 500 million in stock. Look at this. Wealthy people buy assets, not liabilities. So I got one more slide I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to ask you to do me a favor for Jonte. Now, I know a lot of people on this phone probably have a 401k plan. You're looking at your statement, and you're wondering, you know, what tax bracket are you going to be in at retirement? We all think that we're going to be in the lowest tax bracket. Let me show you this. This is the U.S. Debt Clock, usdebtclock.org. This is real time. We are steadily going into debt as a nation. Someone's going to have to pay for it. People that understand it are going to earn it. The people that don't are going to pay it. The average taxpayer is going to spend $242,000 in taxes unnecessarily. We are throwing away our money unnecessarily. So we don't have to do that. There's a better way to do this stuff. All right. So I'm going to show this one little slide, and then we're going to shut it down. And then I'm going to ask you to do 3 things for me to help out Jonte get her business off the ground. If you have a 401k at work and you're wondering, you know, how much of this money is going to be yours, you know, we got to look at this. You know what I mean? Look at your incomes, husband and wife. Let's say you're in a 35% tax bracket. You know, you both making very good incomes. And that's not uncommon in the DC area. This is a high rent district. I talked to several people that have $1 million in their 401k, right? They're in a 35, 36% tax bracket. All right, I'll bring this down a little bit. I'll bring it down to 24%. Either way, I don't want to give it to the government. All right. And let's say you got $1 million in your account. This is eye-opening. I don't want to give the government $270,000 if I don't have to. I don't want to do that. And how do you get around it? Redirect that money to a tax-free bucket. That's how we get around it. So I'm done, y'all. It is 10 minutes to 8, and we said we will keep this under an hour. I'm going to ask you to do 3 things for me, and then we're going to open it up for questions. First of all, I want to thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to support Jonte. And number one, get on her calendar. As you can imagine, she's going to be very busy these next couple of weeks. So get on her calendar, set up an appointment with her. The 3 of us can get on and we can help you any way possible. If we can't help you, we'll tell you we can't help you and we refer you to the person that can help you. Number 2, refer her to 10 people, just 10. Everybody knows somebody that should have heard this tonight. Everybody knows somebody that should have heard this tonight. We do a lot of seminars in churches, civic organizations. We'll come to your church, your fraternity, your sorority, your book club, your family. Everybody has to hear this. And then the third thing is you may be like Jonte and say, you know what? I want to start a business. And what do I need to do? We're doing a special call this Tuesday night at 7 o'clock for all of Jonte's guests. And if you're interested in that, get with her. She can give you the information. And but again, I want to thank you for your time. And anybody want to give any well wishes to Jonte and whatever at this time, this is your time to do so. I'll turn the call back over to you, Jonte.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Back to my famous statement: no shortage of resources here on this planet Earth. Shortage, lack of access, lack of education. And oftentimes, because we are not familiar with information, we kind of side-eye it a little bit. And so to not give any space for that, I want to really extend an opportunity for anyone to ask any questions. This is your time. If there's any pastors on here, I can't see who's on here, any leaders of community organizations, free of charge, will come to your organization, come to your church, and present this information. Because again, my goal is to eliminate this wealth gap and really provide support to our communities. Because again, no shortage, no lack of resources here on this planet Earth. And I want to make sure that we get to these resources. Well, if all hearts and minds are clear, we can go ahead and we can end it here. And again, I want to thank all of you for taking this time to celebrate with me. And together, we're going to go up. So thank you all.